morning. I'd like to welcome everyone to the LaPorte County Sheriff's Department Merit Board, March 11th, 2020. When we rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd ask that you remain standing for a moment of silence for Mitchell Pavich, retired jail deputy and bailiff. He passed away on March the 7th, 2020. Mitch worked for the Sheriff's Department between 1980 and 1983. When he accepted the position of bailiff in Superior Court 1. So we could do the pledge and then remain standing in memory of Mitch.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Did all board members receive a copy of the minutes from the February meeting? Have you reviewed them? If so, are there any corrections to the minutes as presented? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion. Do I have a second? Motion second. Any questions? All in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Good morning, Sheriff.
Good morning. Thank you for taking a moment to recognize Mitch Pavich. Mitch was a great guy. Everybody liked him. I'm sorry, good morning. Thank you for taking a moment to recognize Mitch Pavich. He was just a great guy. Everybody liked him. Connie Trojanowski and myself were just talking about him prior to the meeting, and he was just a super guy. Everybody knew Mitch. Mitch knew everybody, and he's going to be missed. We were sorry to hear of his passing, and we're looking closely to find out when his arrangements are so we can attend and also send flowers to his family so they know that we're thinking about them. Our agenda today, the first item is the fact that Deputy Austin Eppel is in his final weeks of field training, and he is on target to complete his requirements on April 5th. Upon successful completion, he will be assigned to the day shift, where he will report to Captain Dallas Smythe and Sergeants Tony Wallace and Scott Boswell. And as a reminder, jail deputies Benjamin Poynton and Jacob Payne, who are on our merit hiring eligibility list, are scheduled to participate in the Indiana Law Enforcement Fitness Standard Testing on May 4th and are enrolled in the basic recruit training class that begins on May 11th, 2020. That 15-week session will conclude on August 21st. Deputy Jacob Payne is replacing retired Detective Michael Raymer, and Deputy Poynton will replace Sergeant Kevin Ulam, who's scheduled to be retiring in May. With that said, I don't see Sergeant Wright here, but he thought he might be here to give an FTO report, but he wasn't sure if he'd make it, so he sent me an email, and I'd like to read to you his report on the FTO program. Deputy Grimberg, Deputy Howell, and Deputy Billings have successfully completed the program and have been assigned to their shifts. Their training consisted of over 400 hours between 6 and 9 field training officers. Since being assigned to their shifts, I've heard positive feedback from supervisors about their performance, which is a good measure of the current program and its successes. As always, we look for ways to improve, and we have a few minor changes in mind for this next group. Deputy Austin Eppel is over 300 hours into his training, and he is progressing well. Unfortunately, he had a setback involving an illness that pushed his anticipated completion date back a little bit, but he's had a great attitude, and he's being accepted as a peer among his deputies, his fellow deputies, and the field training officers. I'd like to give recognition to the FTO staff and their efforts because they've not gone unnoticed. I truly believe that being an FTO is one of the most difficult assignments on the department and one of the most important. The FTO program sets the foundation for an entire career. I'm confident that our field trainers have provided our recruiters the tools to succeed on their own and that they know where that they can go for guidance. I've been pleased with the attention to detail that's been shown to them and their collective efforts to keep them on track. Sergeant Wright would also like to recognize the following deputies who are field training officers. Deputies Trey Masterson, Deputy Keith Waltz, Deputy Jacob Peisowitz, Deputy Christina Wimmer, Deputy Alex Pishker, Deputy Shane Landry, Deputy Wade Wallace, and Deputy Dan Kessling. And I echo those comments as well. It's extremely time consuming. Our FTOs routinely work well over their scheduled 8-hour shifts that they have to work, and they're truly never alone. And not only are they doing their job, but oftentimes they're doing the job of others, and they not only have the liability of the decisions that they make, but they're also shouldered with the responsibility and the liability that is associated with the decisions that their trainees make as well. So it's a very difficult position, and the success and the failure often is at the feet of the training officers. So they do a great job with that, and we're looking to actually expand our field training staff because we just have so many that are going through. The next item on the agenda is that we've announced that we are accepting applications for the position of merit deputy, and we're going to close that application period on April 3rd. Successful applicants will fill our eligibility hiring list. Our physical agility and written examination will take place at the fairgrounds on April 24th. And while that is more than a month away, if you as a merit commission could start talking about that and perhaps designate someone to at least come in and proctor the written exam, as always, we would appreciate it. And then as we conclude our April meeting, if you could just let us know who would be in attendance to help represent the merit commission at that written examination.
Sheriff, if I recall, I believe the physical agility normally starts at 9.
Yes.
Followed by the written at 1. Is that?
Yes. However, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the last time or two, didn't we give them about a half hour after the written examination and just allowed them to take the written exam?
Correct.
So we just made it kind of a quicker day for everybody.
Okay, so
Depends on how many applicants we have show up and how fast we get through the physical agility testing. I don't want to set a time of 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon and guys are just mingling around for several hours. So we always kind of play it by ear and then always make sure they get enough time to recover from the physical agility, maybe grab a bite to eat and then get back.
Okay.
So it just depends.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
As always, we report the number of calls for service that we have at Franciscan Health, and for the month of February, we responded to 17 calls for service at the hospital. This was 2 less than the calls that we responded to in the month of January. Interestingly, Chief Deputy Heeg put together a list of calls for service at the hospital for 2019, and we had 129 calls for service at the hospital. We did meet with their security staff last week, actually their top 2 security coordinators there at the hospital at their request, and we just discussed kind of a year-end review and what to look forward to in 2020, and we talked about some of the issues that we're mutually experiencing, so perhaps they could improve their services and we could improve our services that we provide them as well. We had very few issues, but we just want to improve upon the relationship that we have, which is very, very strong, and we did share these numbers with them, and I think they were surprised by the number of calls for service that we had there as well. But as I said, when you break it down in a 12-month period, it's not an inordinate amount of calls that we have there, especially considering the population that's located in a very confined area. Our calls for service department-wide decreased 22% from January to February. Last month we answered 2,702 calls for service. This was compared to 2,696 calls for service in the month of February. We did, though, have a 14% increase in traffic activity during the same period, and our crashes from January to February were down 1.8%. In addition, our personally injured crashes were down during the same time period by 25%. Unfortunately, though, in the month of February, we did have 2 fatality crashes that we investigated. On March 2nd, our canines conducted a free air sweep at South Central Junior Senior High School. That was conducted at the request of South Central Schools Administration. The academic and athletic lockers were swept and no narcotics were located as a result of the search. As you recall, we did the same thing at Westville High School and Middle School in January, and we're going to continue to offer those services, and we do that when the schools reach out to us and ask if we can bring our dogs in. We don't call them and say, can we bring our dogs in? We respond when they ask us. Lacrosse High School hosted a Heroes Night event on February 22nd during their game against Culver. This event was the 5th year of recognizing and honoring law enforcement and first responders. Several boxes of survival kits were provided for merit and jail staff, and they were prepared and presented by the student body at the lacrosse game. I also brought with me a little note that had been included in each of the survival kits. Each of the survival kits was a bag of different candies for our deputies, and it was a way for the student body to let our deputies, whether they're merit deputies or whether they're jail deputies, know that these students are thinking about them and appreciate them. And it meant so much that I wanted to read it to you. It was a list, I'll hold it up so you can see it, inside each bag. And it's labeled Survival Kit for Our Heroes. And it actually identifies each piece of candy that is in the bag and the purpose for it. Bless you. For instance, the first piece of candy that was in there is a lifesaver, and that's to remind you of the many times you've been one. Starburst for the burst of energy that you need. Payday, since you're not doing it for the money. Hershey Kisses to show our love for you. Gum to help everyone stick together. A Tootsie Roll, you have to roll with the punches. Peppermint Patty helping you to keep your cool. Snickers to help you keep your humor. And Mounds for the mounds of courage that you show. This was a really great event. It was really emotional for us when these students came out onto the court and hugged us all. There were a number of firefighters that were there from Cass Clinton, from Dewey Lacrosse Fire Department, from Hanna Township. LaPorte County EMS was there. The Sheriff's Office was there. There was even a referee during the varsity game from the Indiana State Police that's a good friend of ours that was there. And the students came out, and the first ones out were the basketball team for lacrosse, and then the cheerleaders. But I think probably one of the most touching parts of the night was as the basketball players came out onto the court to one by one shake our hands and hug each and every one of us. The Culver basketball team, Culver community, actually came out on the floor. They got in line with their coaching staff, and they hugged us and shook our hand and thanked us as well. And the first athlete from Culver that came out, I was the first in line. I kind of looked at him as he came out in his Culver warm-ups. He said, I know I don't go to school here and I don't live in LaPorte County, he said, but we appreciate what you guys do for us anyway. And he gave me a big hug, and they just went right down the line and they hugged all of us and thanked us. I thought that was a neat touch that their coach had their players get in line also, even though it was a lacrosse sponsored event. That's the kind of relationship we have with our community. It's really touching. It was a great night for all of us. The LaPorte County Sheriff's Office will be hosting an upcoming motivational speaker on March 26th and 27th at Blue Chip Casino. Please make a note of those dates because we're including you as well. Our featured speaker is Greg Stubbe, who's a retired Green Beret who travels all over the country to present about leadership, team training, and resilience. Major Hafferkamp, Captain Allen, and I recently attended one of his workshops at the Indiana Sheriff's Winter Conference in Indianapolis, and we wanted to bring him to LaPorte County to speak to our employees. We've opened this opportunity up to all of LaPorte County law enforcement, and the event will be hosted at Blue Chip Casino, and they have graciously waived all their fees associated with this, so they're going to be providing their staff a room, and they're also going to be providing refreshments to all of those that will be attending for free. In addition, Mr. Stubbe will be staying at Blue Chip Casino, and they've also comped his room because they realize how important this is for us. We have a great relationship, obviously, with them. He's a very dynamic speaker, and if you look at the back of the packet that you've been provided today, you'll see that you've been included with the flyer that we've been putting out to law enforcement. We hope to have several hundred LaPorte County law enforcement professionals at his motivational speaking event. We're really lucky to have him, and I brought his resume with me. And I just want to let you know how well regarded he is. He's the longest tenured speaker at the FBI National Academy. He's been doing this for a number of years. Not only that, but he does motivational speaking for the CIA in Langley, Virginia, the DEA, the Veterans Administration, the United States Supreme Court, but he also recently spoke to the Indiana Supreme Court. He talks to a number of state police agencies. In fact, he just did a motivational seminar for the entire administrative staff of the Indiana State Police. It talks to a number of sheriff's departments throughout the country, the United States Border Patrol and Customs, the New York Police Department Homicide Detective Academy, the United States Army Special Operations Command, the Army Medical Command. He talks to the drivers of NASCAR, the NFL, and a number of private organizations as well. Mr. Stubbe was injured in the line of duty as a United States Green Beret in Afghanistan. I'll briefly tell you about what happened. While serving in combat operations in the global war on terror, he was wounded in Afghanistan during Operation Medusa. Stubbe's A-team encountered overwhelming numbers of Taliban fighters in the Battle of the Spurwan Gar, which lasted over a week. He suffered wounds when a remotely detonated IED and enemy fire seemed fatal, but instead he survived to endure months of hospitalization and surgeries. Actually, it was over a year. Huge wounds to his abdomen, his hip, and his pelvis eventually closed, and his nearly severed leg was restored, and extensive full-thickness burns were grafted. I highly encourage you to attend this if you can, because he's a great motivational speaker, and you can see firsthand how we're lending this to our department for leadership and resiliency. We're very fortunate to have him. This is open only for law enforcement, but because of your affiliation with the department, we wanted to include you as well. So please pick one of those dates. It's not a continual lecture that he gives. One is for those that can make it on Thursday evening, and the other is for those that can make it on Friday morning. So one or the other, if you could make it, you're certainly welcome to attend. In late February and March, we utilized the Michigan City Police Department virtual range for training for all of our merit deputies and courthouse security. The training was mandatory and offered during the course of each shift or division schedule so as to add to the realism. Each deputy was faced with 3 scenarios, and the outcome of each scenario was based upon the deputy's presence, decisions, de-escalation techniques, and verbal commands to the adversary or the threat. Captain Derek Allen, Captain Andrew Heineck, Detective Nathan Battleday, Deputy Keith Walls provided the training, and we appreciate their expertise and their willingness to provide instruction. We also appreciate our relationship with the Michigan City Police Department, that they allow us to come in and use their virtual range at any time during the day. Again, our midnight shift did it during their midnight hours, afternoon shift came in during their afternoon hours, day shift, administration, detectives, courthouse security came in when they could get in there, but we had 100% participation from the department, which we're really pleased at, and we had individual instruction that took place as well, and it's really important that we do training on decision making. Last week, our merit deputies attended their annual mandatory in-service training. The training seminar, which was conducted by Act Out, is a scenario-based training with actor instructors from the Indianapolis area. This training covered state-mandated training requirements in the areas that include bloodborne pathogen, human trafficking, mental illness, addiction, disabilities, autism, Alzheimer's and dementia, endangered adults, SIDS, and domestic violence and child abuse. During this mandated training period, Dr. Reggie Matias presented a block of instruction on mental health and resiliency. This was excellent training, especially given that the suicide rate among law enforcement was up last year 24% over the previous year. One thing that many don't realize is there were more police officers lost to suicide last year than were killed in the line of duty. So these numbers are just continuing to grow. So it's something that we feel it's important that we talk about and that our staff feels free to talk about. Unfortunately, there's a stigma among law enforcement professionals that we don't talk about mental health or suicide among officers, and therefore law enforcement administrators don't know the scope of the problem if we don't talk about it. But when we do talk about it, we become aware of it, and we can provide services and we can provide help. We're trying to create an atmosphere where we talk about it, make our employees comfortable to reach out and request resources to help them, their coworkers, and their families. Dr. Matias was an excellent speaker. He's very well educated and experienced in the field. And one of the things that was really striking to me, and while it's so true, it's so obvious, I perhaps overlooked it, and that is we have a lot of stress in our lives anyway. Just a normal day, everyday life of trying to maintain a home, trying to maintain a marriage, trying to bring our children up, trying to deal with our neighbors and finances and just everyday life. And then we come to work and we are vested with the responsibility of dealing with everyone else's stresses, and we are responsible for coming up with solutions that they can't. We see horrific things, and we're scrutinized and we're criticized for nearly everything that we do. And so there's just a lot of stress in law enforcement, and we're aware of that, and we want to make sure that our line staff knows that we're aware of it, and we want to have an atmosphere where they feel comfortable coming forward to their supervisors, their coworkers, or the administration and saying, I need some help, maybe I'd like to talk to somebody. But we want them to identify this in their own lives at an early stage, not when it's overwhelming. So we did mandate this for everybody, and I think everybody walked away with it feeling kind of refreshed and renewed, and realizing that it is okay to talk about it. Years ago, when I first got in law enforcement, it wasn't okay to talk about it. It was kind of taboo, out of sight, out of mind. And sometimes the feeling amongst law enforcement administrations nationwide was just get over it and deal with it. And that's not a proper way of dealing with psychological issues and stressors that we have in lives. I wish that we could snap a finger and get over it, but we can't. And sometimes we need to reach out and elicit the help from others, especially professionals. So I'm glad that we have that atmosphere. Got some really good news. Chief Deputy Ron Heeg has been selected to attend the 281st session of the Federal Bureau of Investigation National Academy. Chief Heeg's session will begin on the dates that are listed there. For security reasons, I don't want to announce it publicly. But this is a professional development course for law enforcement leaders, and we're really proud of this prestigious selection. And he's going to soon join Captain Derek Allen as the department's active members who are National Academy graduates. We are currently in the process of identifying and nominating another leader from within the department to attend a future session of the National Academy. This was great news. This application was tendered well over a year ago, about the time when Captain Allen graduated from his session.
14 months ago.
Yeah, and he just received word last week, so that is quite an honor. It's for law enforcement, it's the Top Gun of the law enforcement world, what Top Gun is to naval aviators.
Sheriff, how often do they offer these academies? Is it several times a year?
Yes.
They offer 4 sessions a year throughout the year, and they're 10 weeks long.
And a capacity of students in each class?
No more than 250. They average anywhere between 225 and 250, and they're from all over the world.
We do have several letters of commendation and recognition. One that I actually just received overnight. It didn't make the agenda, but I'd like to read it nonetheless. The first one is a letter of commendation that was written by Sergeant Scott Boswell on February 16th. On Monday, February 10th, at around 5:56 a.m., Deputy Justin Phillips was summoned to the area of Muir Road in 900 North in reference to suspicious activity and people. Deputy Phillips was notified via 911 that a subject was being followed on foot by an unknown individual calling his name. Trail Creek Marshal Steve Dick arrived in the area to assist, and upon Marshal Dick's arrival, he found 2 individuals on 900 North just east of Muir Road. One of the individuals fled south into the woods, although the second subject acted in a manner as if he would flee also. He was detained by Marshal Dick. Deputy Dan Kessling, who just completed a midnight shift, came to the area to assist. Deputy Kessling and Phillips then pursued the unknown individual into a wooded area from 900 North. Note that the temperature at the time was around freezing. As initial investigation progressed, Marshal Dick indicated that the individuals had possibly burglarized a nearby residence prior to contact with law enforcement. Deputy Michael Sweet arrived to assist with the foot pursuit, and I arrived a short time later after Deputy Sweet. A dynamic perimeter was coordinated based on the information being relayed by deputies Kessling and Phillips. They continued to track the individual south while paralleling Muir Road. In several instances, the fresh tracks in the snow dissipated. Even though they reached areas where the tracks dissipated, Deputies Kessling and Phillips continued their search. They eventually would locate areas where the foot impressions resumed. They continued on despite the freezing temperatures and the thick brush. As the track continued, it was determined that these individuals had allegedly burglarized a detached residential garage located in the northwest corner of Friar Road in Muir Road. This home is within the boundary of the Michigan City Police jurisdiction. Various items were removed from the garage and set along the roadway. Most notably was a set of hand tools strewn about the driveway apron of this residence. Deputy Bobby Greer and his canine partner Argo arrived at the scene to assist with the track, and by 7:30 a.m., Deputies Kessling and Phillips had pursued the individual to 800 North. Due to the perimeter previously established and ongoing communication, we were able to apprehend the subject on 800 North. Early in the investigation, information relayed was confusing at times. Having 3 law enforcement agencies participate in the incident also created confusion on some levels. I'm extremely proud that all participated in this investigation. The teamwork ultimately resulted in an apprehension of several individuals alleged to have committed a burglary. These individuals were later charged with non-residential burglary as a result of the investigation, and the investigation continues after their apprehension. Although this was a team effort, Deputies Dan Kessling and Phillips need to be recognized for their efforts to apprehend the fleeing individual. They continued the pursuit even when faced with a lack of physical evidence and environmental conditions that were less than favorable. Please join me in commending Deputy Dan Kessling and Deputy Justin Phillips. Respectfully, Sergeant Scott Boswell. We appreciate that Sergeant Boswell took the time to write this, and we also appreciate the effort of the deputies involved. Copies of this have already been made and placed in their permanent personnel files, and we also sent them an email congratulating them and giving them a copy of this as well. Lastly, last night I received an email of commendation from Lieutenant Ken Drake of the Michigan City Police Department. Sheriff Boyd, last night, halfway through the Michigan City Police Department's 3rd shift, we became very busy, if not hectic. It started shortly after most of our officers were setting up on a fugitive who was known to always flee from police, known to carry guns and drugs, and has previously fled to Missouri in the past, and was at one time tracked down and located and arrested by the U.S. Marshal. We had spent some time setting up in a house in a vehicle that the fugitive had just been seen by a confidential source. We were assisted by Captain Heineck and Deputy Hahn and his canine partner. As anticipated, the vehicle soon left the residence and a felony stop was initiated with Captain Heineck, Deputy Hahn, and several other Michigan City police officers. Captain Heineck and Deputy Hahn were first to take the vehicle. Part of Captain Heineck's experience and training in safely pitting vehicles, fleeing, and Deputy Hahn's canine multiple purpose abilities. Once the felony stop was completed, it was quickly learned that our fugitive was not in the vehicle. This led to the house where we were setting up on and was eventually searched. Again, we were assisted by Captain Heineck and Deputy Hahn. Unfortunately, the fugitive was not located. Shortly thereafter, the 911 dispatch center advised Michigan City police units of a female who had just been shot and was possibly dead in a closet. Further information was given that possibly a male subject had forced his way into an apartment and shot the female. As I and several Michigan City police officers were responding, Captain Heineck immediately advised me over our frequency that he and about 4 other sheriff's deputies were en route to the shooting location on Herring Gull Lane, which is Canterbury apartment complex. As Michigan City Police Department officers arrived on scene, the victim was found deceased in the closet, and the suspect was quickly detained as it was learned that his son had fatally shot and killed his mother. Within those few minutes, I began to see many sheriff's deputies arrive, and Captain Heineck and his officers quickly interjected themselves to assist. From assisting in securing the crime scene, assisting the neighborhood canvass of many apartments, and to investigate other avenues of possible vehicles by the deceased and the suspect. So, while all this was going on and a lot of Michigan City police officers were tied up, Captain Heineck offered to transport any prisoners we had or assist in any calls for service. Luckily for once, we did not have any prisoners to transport. Unfortunately, our night did not stop with just that homicide. While many of our officers were tied up with that homicide, the Regional Dispatch Center advised of a structure fire on East 9th Street. With little available Michigan City police officers, we traveled to this 2-story residence that was possibly engulfed in flames and occupied by several elderly subjects, and it was in fact found to be partially engulfed. We were again lucky enough to be assisted by many of LaPorte County Sheriff's deputies. They assisted in trying to possibly make entry into the house and determine if anyone was inside. Even after the house was fully engulfed, many of your units stood by for an extended period while I arranged to get the street department out with barricades. The fire was so large that the fire department began to hook up from several blocks away, making it more complicated to shut down a larger area of streets and the LaPorte County Sheriff's Department assisted with. Essentially, I felt this email was most appropriate to thank your Shift 3 officers who assisted us as if we were family, as none of this could have been done safely without the dedication and willingness of all of your deputies. Times like this only build camaraderie amongst different agencies when we have such younger officers. The teamwork as shown by each one of your officers will resonate for years to come. Thank you again very much, Lieutenant Ken Drake, Michigan City Police Department. We appreciate that he took the time to send that email. We've responded to him, thanking him, but it comes as no surprise. Captain Heineck is great with working with other agencies, and the fact that he routinely pulls resources and manpower to help other agencies that are in need, it epitomizes what teamwork is all about. And Lieutenant Drake is right. It just shows that when we have teamwork, it's a force multiplier. And that while they may wear blue uniforms and we wear brown, we're all doing it for the same purpose. So thank you, Captain Heineck, and to Deputy Hahn as well, and the rest of your deputies that worked that night helping out Michigan City without even being called to assist. A reminder that our next Merit Commission meeting is Wednesday, April 8th at 9 o'clock. Attached are the Warrants Division, Detective Bureau, and Jail Monthly reports. And I'd like to draw your attention to the warrants report. As we always report, you can see the number of warrants that we received last month, 241, yet we went out and served 236 of those. If you look at the year-to-date totals, so far we've received 546 criminal warrants and we've served 470. So we're doing a pretty good job when you consider that in those 2 months there were a little more than 60 days and we served 470 warrants in those 60 days. That is quite an accomplishment. That tells you how busy not only is our warrants division, but our FAST team and also our deputies as well. Our jail report is included. And you can see that our average daily population is trending down, although slightly it is trending down, and we are under capacity. I'll mention to you, and I'll be reporting next month, that this month is our annual jail inspection. The Department of Correction will be coming in later this month to provide that, so we're eagerly anticipating that. Our jail report has been concluded, and we've also published our department annual report and our jail report to our department website. So that can be accessed by the public and they can see exactly what we've been doing. And then finally, the Detective Bureau report, and you can see that they too are busy. They have a number of cases that have been assigned as usual. One thing that I did forget, I'm sorry, is Major Hafferkamp has a report about our new vehicles. And we're making substantial progress in receiving those vehicles and getting those outfitted. And I'd like to report about that now.
My pleasure. Good morning. Just to give an update, I reported last month on the number of total vehicles that we had purchased as of late fall last year. Pleased to announce that we've taken possession of 11 of the 12 2020 Ford Explorers that we had ordered back in the fall. We are currently waiting the arrival of one that has been built, yet has yet to be shipped. I'm hoping to have word on that, and we expect that any time now. Currently, Bob Parks, our chief mechanic, along with John Brandy, are working diligently to outfit our new vehicles. As of Monday, TKO Graphics out of Plainfield came to the garage and had put the graphics on all the vehicles. On the 16th of March, Premium Sound and Security out of Antioch, Illinois. Their crew will be here to start installing the equipment in our new vehicles. This is going to be a two-phase project because of the number of vehicles we have. The first phase will outfit 6 of them, so as we can issue those out to deputies that have been identified as receiving a new vehicle, and to also place our newly hired deputies who are waiting vehicles into a used vehicle. That way we'll have everybody on the street with a vehicle and nobody has to borrow or has to wait on one. We will set one back as we do have one current deputy who's out of the country on deployment. So we're not rushed with that vehicle, but we will be putting that aside until his return. Naturally, if we do need to use that in the event of emergency, we'll have that at our disposal. And then we hope to have the first batch of vehicles issued by the, I should say, maybe the late part of the month. And then back, or on the 6th of April, the second round with Premium Sound Security, they'll come in again and outfit the remaining vehicles, and then we'll have them all issued. We also will be trading, as part of the purchase process, 7 of our used vehicles that we currently have will go as trades, and we'll be getting rid of those. So that's where we stand. 11 we have now currently in possession, and 1 we're waiting on.
Major, did we not have a vehicle that was totaled recently, or?
But we had a couple, I'm trying to remember at the top of my head. Sheriff, help me out if you can remember, but we did have one that, correct, Corey Chavez's vehicle.
Right.
Yeah. We've since worked with the insurance company, and that vehicle is currently being fixed. So.
Okay, so it wasn't totaled?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
They, between our mechanics and the insurance company, it was deemed that it was repairable.
Okay.
And the company that's repairing it deemed that there was no structural damage other than cosmetic damage. Although the cosmetic damage was heavy, we've opted to just go ahead and repair.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else, Sheriff? Any comments from the floor?
Good morning. I just wanted to comment briefly on 2 issues that I intend on submitting letters to the sheriff on for May's meeting. I'm going to be gone both in April and May. I won't make the meeting due to previously scheduled trips, but May 1st is the 1-year anniversary of the hiring of Deputy Billings and Howell that are on midnight shift, and they are phenomenal deputies. They've only been on their own, obviously, with us for about a month, but I can't say enough good things. I talked to Mr. Weebrook yesterday about this, that just 2 really great deputies. I mean, they have awesome attitudes. They willing to work and back guys up. They ask questions. We have a lot of veteran officers that are helping them with kind of getting them squared away. So I will have those letters tendered for the sheriff for May. And then the second issue for May will be obviously the retirement of Sergeant Ulam, who's on midnight shift. We're going to miss his experience. Kevin Ulam has just a phenomenal amount of experience that he's, again, done a really good job of passing on to some of our younger deputies. Kevin's worked in every division in the department. He's supervised every division in the department, and especially his years in the Detective Bureau have proved to be great tools, again, to train some of our younger deputies. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain. Any other comments from the floor? Comments from the floor? Hearing none. Comments from the board?
I just have a couple comments. So we sit here and we listen to lots of heartwarming events, lots of great news about everyone in the department. And hopefully some of these are shared. I'm hoping some of it is shared on either social media or in the newspaper, such as the lacrosse. Yet, you mentioned, Sheriff, in the beginning, this seemingly perpetual criticism of law enforcement in general. That, can we help ourselves? Maybe, and I will preface this, maybe you're already doing it and I'm not seeing it, but to enhance the perception of the positiveness, the great decision making, the great teamwork, and cohesiveness that's happening within a department, and then among multiple departments. Things such as the letter from the police chief in Michigan City, can something like that be published? And of course, omitting anything that would be non-public information. But to me, that is an incredible story that I think our public should hear, or the ones who are willing to read or listen to it, maybe on the radio. Are there ways we can help ourselves more? We already do a great job by virtue of being in those public public events, and the great community relationship that you have. But I think that we can do even more that will hopefully perpetuate that image among all law enforcement. Just a suggestion.
We potentially could, but I want to make this clear too. Well, I talk about criticism of law enforcement. I'm not specifically talking about local criticism of our department. I'm talking about a general feeling nationwide. We are really lucky, and I think I like to emphasize that we're so fortunate here in LaPorte County because we do have such a supportive group of citizens who aren't afraid or ashamed to announce their support for law enforcement. In particular in La Crosse, a group of students that is so willing to let us know how they feel about us and how much they appreciate us. When it comes to publishing letters of commendation, there's quite a bit from that would have to be redacted that I actually didn't read because it has some things that perhaps would compromise an investigation that can't be released outside of a charging information, and I don't want to compromise another agency's investigation. I wouldn't know where to begin to redact information from that while still holding the letter together.
And I do want to say I understand completely that this department and our local law enforcement does not receive the criticism that is more nationally or globally. But that was just one suggestion, that this department, the way it runs and the way it's viewed, I think can be that catalyst for more, beyond this community. I guess I'm thinking more globally in the fact that, let's outside of our community, this could have more influence, if you will.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
Yeah.
That's all?
That's all.
Okay. I want a couple comments. I want to thank Captain Allen and the sheriff for putting out just the reminders about this coronavirus that's going on right now. Again, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what Laura just said, that our law enforcement community, first responders, all of them, not only the law enforcement, but EMS and fire department are faced with this. And when they're responding to a call and they see a critical incident in front of them, I think so many times their focus is on helping that individual or helping that situation. And at times, unfortunately, the precautionary steps that they're being reminded of are not put into place. They're more worried about helping with what's going on than their own safety. We see that time and time and time again. And I appreciate the efforts by you and Captain Allen to remind them, but again, I think more times than not, they're more concerned and more able to get to that situation and help than they are to put the protective gear on or beware. But again, that doesn't mean that they shouldn't. I mean, we know we're not supposed to be in crowds or anything like that, yet we see Sergeant Boswell and Andy Heineck sitting shoulder to shoulder. They should probably be on opposite sides of the room, but that's okay. But anyway, I just think it's great the way that things is being approached, especially locally and by the department here, Sheriff, so thank you for that. The situation too that you indicated with Dr. Matias, I think is outstanding. I will say that in my tenure with the Department of Corrections, we had a individual similar to Dr. Matias that was on call, that came in quite a few times when we had critical incidences, or in more particular when we had to carry out an execution, and that individual was there and present. I will say that this individual had to earn the trust and the confidence of a lot of employees before they would open up to him and accept his guidance or accept his help or even feel comfortable talking to him. So I sincerely hope that Dr. Matias will be engaged in this. Knowing him, I think he will be. And I feel that once the people start seeing his face around and gaining the confidence and the trust, that maybe that will help them to go forward and sit down and talk to him in confidence and try to resolve some of their issues. So I would certainly hope that Dr. Matias would be willing, which I think he would be, to stay engaged with the Sheriff's Department and any other law enforcement agencies that can utilize his expertise, it will go a long way.
He said that he would, and we're lucky to have him living in our community.
True.
Absolutely, he is a resource that we're going to call upon, and he appreciates what LaPorte County law enforcement provides for our community, and he wants to help us be healthy so that we can provide the services that we do. I want to talk a little bit about the coronavirus. I'll tell you, this may be a little bit of an editorial on my part, but it's being really overblown by the media and in social media as well. There are a number of scams that are out there now as a result, and so-called cures for the coronavirus, so people have to be careful of that. But every single day we get notifications from the Centers for Disease Control, the Indiana Sheriff's Association, the National Sheriff's Association, the Indiana Department of Health, the Department of Justice, the LaPorte County Health Department, EMS has been helpful as well. We are concerned, but you look at the precautions, those are precautions that we should be taking anyway. And I'm going to be honest with you, having our staff or personally being exposed to coronavirus really pales in comparison to some of the bloodborne pathogens and some of the other sickness and disease that we could be exposed to every single day. Where we're particularly concerned is the jail, because they have a confined population and they are in such close proximity, and it's very difficult to segregate. With that said, we have a lot of sickness and disease that comes into the jail, as you can imagine. Everything from scabies to bed bugs to tuberculosis to a number of other communicable diseases as well that we're mindful of. We're the second jail in the state of Indiana. We followed Porter County's lead in taking extra precautions during the screening process, and we segregate the prisoners when they come in to make sure that they're not carriers of the coronavirus. We're very mindful of that. We're also very mindful of the fact that it wouldn't take very long for something like that to spread rapidly through our jail or any other correctional facility. But keep in mind that any given day we are extraditing prisoners from other penal facilities back here, whether it be other jails or prison systems throughout the state of Indiana and the Midwest. So we're mindful. But when we're transporting, we're also in close proximity. And you see the healthcare specialists that are providing care to those, for instance, that are on the cruise ships. They're in self-contained suits. We just can't possibly do that in our jail, and we're working in just as close proximity to those inmates and potential patients as those that are providing care for those that are on the cruise ship. So we're especially aware, and it just goes to show how hazardous our job is, and people don't often think about our jail deputies that are living and working and breathing in that type of environment. But we are keeping a close eye on it. I'm really proud of our commissioners, county commissioners. We're having a meeting tomorrow with some department heads, and we're actually going to be talking about the coronavirus. It certainly doesn't hurt to talk about it, but we have to be careful to keep our deputies calm, because there is a lot of hysteria over this. And each and every year, tens of thousands of people die from the flu. And there have been several hundred that have died worldwide as a result of the coronavirus. So while you don't hear much about people dying from the flu, you don't hear much about the hundreds of people that die every day due to gun violence and other forms of violence. You certainly do about the handful of people that unfortunately die as a result of the coronavirus. So we have to keep it in perspective here.
Thank you for your due diligence on that. Any other comments from the board? Hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Have a motion, do I have a second? Motion second, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, meeting adjourned at 9:50 a.m. Thank you.